What if the reason someone didn't fight for you after a breakup wasn't because they didn't love you, but because they didn't know how to love out loud? Today I'm going to break down Jay-Z's song Cry verse by verse to understand why this song still hits so deeply over 20 years later, even without the dramatic lyrics, yelling, or tears. Because in this song, Jay-Z doesn't cry. The song does. This song, being released in 2001, was at a time when emotional vulnerability in hip hop, especially from the men, wasn't rewarded. Song Cry is Jay-Z reflecting on a painful breakup, his emotional limitations, and the consequences of choosing ambition, pride, selfish desires, and survival over choosing to show a willingness to be vulnerable with his partner. The central theme is simple, but it is very heavy. This isn't a song about betrayal, it's about emotional absence. Right away, Jay-Z sets the tone. He admits he doesn't cry easily, not because he doesn't feel pain, but because he was never taught how to express it safely. So instead of him crying, the music becomes his emotional outlet. The beat being the emotion and the song becoming the release. This reflects back a larger truth, especially for men raised to be tough no matter what. Because for them, crying isn't encouraged. It's not seen as acceptable, especially on the topic of love. It's just not an option. Vulnerability is seen as weakness, and silence becomes the way of survival for these men. So for Jay-Z, instead of breaking down emotionally, he records the pain. Even in the very beginning of the music video, you notice how deeply hurt he is because he drives by her house hoping to see her, or maybe just for nostalgic memories. In verse 1, we see self-awareness but without any change. In the verse, Jay-Z speaks directly to his ex, and he explains why the relationships failed from his perspective. Jay-Z admits that he loved her but wasn't fully present. He prioritized his hustle, money, and ambition over her. He hurt her, even if it wasn't intentional, but in my opinion it was. He still handled her carelessly, like he would never lose her. She wanted more emotionally than he could give her at the time. What's important here is self-awareness. He knows he failed her and himself emotionally in this relationship, but he also feels trapped by the version of himself he feels he had to be to survive and succeed. This isn't denial, it's explanation but without correction. This is awareness without change. It's very dangerous. So the hook is the emotional core of the song. Jay-Z makes it clear he feels the pain deeply, but he can't show it in a traditional way by crying, right? Because he's a man. So the song becomes his emotional release. This song is about emotional suppression, not so much about emotional absence. Men like him weren't taught how to cry, why to cry, when to cry. Instead, they were taught men don't cry. They just don't. So the pain leaks out through the music, through silence, and the distance he created by not making things right instead. When people raise little boys to believe boys don't cry, they ignore the effects of suppressing their natural emotions. In his world, men don't cry, they absorb. Now, verse 2 focuses on realization after loss. It's about regret arriving too late. In this verse, Jay-Z admits that he didn't understand her value until she was gone. His pride blocked his willingness to be vulnerable with her. He took his lady for granted. He didn't fight hard enough for the woman that he said he loved. He avoided taking emotional risks, like being vulnerable with her. So in turn, he ends up breaking his own heart in retrospect. That vulnerability felt more risky than the loss. The lesson here is brutal. Success doesn't protect you from emotional loss or emotional consequences, and wisdom often arrives after the damage is already done. It's almost impossible to put the pieces back together of a shattered mirror, because even if you tried, the cracks would still remain. The chorus repeatedly represents the silent hurt he's experiencing. When the chorus repeats, it hits differently. It feels heavier. Now we understand his loss a little better after what he explained in the first verse. He's still hurting, just quietly. The silence isn't strength, it's avoidance. And when I say avoidance, the avoidance is him showing an unwillingness to take accountability for all the damage that's been done to his love life, that has caused him the hurt that he's experiencing in this moment. He's hurting, he's just hurting quietly. And he's probably putting on a mask in front of his friends and family, trying to save face, trying to hide his bruised ego and not let the world know that he's really brokenhearted, which is completely understandable. The heart of the song for me was verse 3. And it's honestly my favorite verse, because here he shows the most vulnerability. Verse 3 is where Song Cry becomes bigger than just one relationship. In this verse, we can see emotional suppression. Jay-Z explains he doesn't show pain outwardly. And it's not because he doesn't feel it, but because he was raised to believe that emotional vulnerability equals weakness. The same thing that most men were raised to believe, right? Pride and ego is heavily showcased in this verse. He admits his ego stopped him from expressing love fully or fighting harder. Maintaining control mattered more than emotional honesty, and it cost him big time. His pride kept him controlled, dignified, and emotionally distanced, but it didn't get him the results that he was hoping for. He suffered silently. He's suffering in silence, but outwardly he seems calm and unbothered. Underneath it all, he is hiding a deep internal pain. His pride, ego, and emotional immaturity prevented him from being vulnerable with her. And instead, he chose to remain silent. And his silence got mistaken for indifference. The same indifference that I'm sure she felt during their marriage due to the loneliness and infidelity. Also, to her, it was probably like he really doesn't care. It's time for me to just move on. And what happened next was acceptance. He is forced to accept the outcome of the actions that he took and the actions that he did not take. He doesn't beg. He doesn't reach out to her. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't in any way insinuate in the song that he tried to fix his marriage. Probably because he had too much pride to tell the woman that he loved that he messed up. He was sorry. And that he is really torn up about it. Too much pride can lead to self-destruction. There's a cultural message here, because then he zooms out, right? And it isn't just his story. It's a story about masculinity, emotional armor that men wear, and men losing love because they were never taught how to express vulnerability. In essence, the village that it took to raise these men have failed them. And they are part of the problem in the grand scheme of things. A lot of men with this issue don't know how to love out loud, because either they weren't taught how to, they weren't taught it was safe to, or possibly both. Now, I've said this a few times at this point, so I think I should address it. When I say loving quietly, it looks like this. It's like feeling love but not expressing it. Assuming loyalty and money was enough. This is what Jay-Z did. He assumed that loyalty and his money was enough, that his presence was enough, that providing was enough. All these things, yet and still, he avoided emotional conversations. You know, love isn't just what you feel, it's what you say. Love is what you show. Love is the risk that you take. Unexpressed love doesn't feel safe. He was letting his pride block reassurance or apologies, remaining in that comfort zone that ultimately killed his chances of being with her. That's loving quietly. And loving out loud looks like this: verbal affection, emotional presence, vulnerability even when it's uncomfortable because it's necessary. Fighting for the relationship instead of staying silent. That's emotional immaturity. Doing the hard work and showing up for the things that truly matter to you. That's loving out loud. Jay-Z loved her, but he didn't make her feel chosen, secure, or emotionally seen. Instead, he took her for granted. He neglected her. He emotionally abused her. He cheated on her. Because of who he was to her, he thought that he'd never lose her, no matter what he did. And by verse 3, Jay-Z understands how she felt finally. And you can see that she felt unseen, unheard. She felt tired of waiting. She questioned her worth. And not because she lacked confidence, but because his silence felt like rejection. She felt emotionally starved. So she decided to choose herself over potential. The potential of what he could be. But the potential that never manifested into anything because he never showed it to her. It doesn't seem like she left him out of spite. It didn't seem like she left to hurt him. She left because silence felt like abandonment. She left to choose herself when he didn't. Her leaving wasn't betrayal, it was an act of self-love. She put herself first when he didn't. Her leaving was a response to actions that he initiated. Meanwhile, Jay-Z is sitting over there like, how dare you react to something I did to you in a way that I didn't see coming? you can't make this stuff up. Like, this is how people be in real life, men or women. Art imitates life, life imitates art. I'm sure he did feel an array of emotions when he found out about her new man. He didn't even acknowledge the new guy as her man. He called him her special friend, like he wore a helmet or something. And he said when he found out about her special friend, he was shocked. You know, I'll never understand why some people they'll do their partner dirty, and they think that even though they're being intimate with someone else new, that their old partner is waiting in a freezer for them to come back so they can continue to do life together. Like their past partner is supposed to put their life on hold and just wait for them to stop playing around out there and come back to them so they can be their life partner. But we all know when you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And Jay-Z said that he was shocked. He had a face of stone. He was so shocked by the news. He couldn't believe that she had moved on without giving him a heads up. Like, hey, I'm starting to date someone else. I'm thinking about dating someone else. She didn't do any type of hints. And you could tell in Jay-Z's mind that he thought that she still belonged to him. And when he realized that she was with someone else, the pain that he felt isn't just jealousy. It's a sign of finality. It's a realization that he had to let sink in because he didn't think that his silence would actually cost him to lose her for good. That's that emotional immaturity rearing its ugly head back up. He assumed that she'd always be there for a number of reasons. They go way back. They went through the struggle together. She held him down. She helped him when he needed it the most. He married her. He done her wrong in the past, time after time, and she never left. This ending wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to take him back like she'd always done. He was playing chess with her, but he didn't see her next move coming when she got up from the table and she just left the board. The moment he realized that she moved on, it represented the ending, finality, the consequences of his actions. And losing access, it was not a competition with another man, because after all, it was over. He never even fought for her. And now it's too late. But by the time reality hits him, the door is already closed and somebody else already occupies the space. In verse 3, he questioned what was special about their connection. After all, if she was able to move on, and in his eyes, so easily, but she could argue the same thing. But to him, all those other girls, they were just being used by him for sexual pleasures. It's the age-old argument, right? That sex for men with random women, it means nothing. But most women aren't just having random sex with men. There's usually some type of emotion attached, because these women are hoping to build with said men 9 times out of 10. But it still doesn't excuse his lack of consideration for how she felt being cheated on and neglected. And then he goes on to say, in so many words, how dare you start talking to someone else without giving me a heads up? If you would have just, basically he's saying, if you would have given me a heads up, I would have came in and pulled on your heartstrings and got him up out of there and reclaimed my territory. Basically, play some games, because it was all a game. His silence was a game. It just backfired on him. But for her not letting him know that she was moving on, that really blindsided him, because they weren't supposed to be done in his eyes. Then he goes on to blame her for not showing him more clearly that she was tired of being taken for granted by him. Because for him, up until that point, she just put up with whatever and never left. So that made him feel like he'd never lose her no matter what. And you got to be careful. Like, every man and every woman is not going to just let you play games with their heart, especially if it's happened to them time after time, lover after lover in the past. That's why it's important to really get to know your partner and to know their relationship history and the things that they have been through, so that you'll know how to love them in a healing way. And you'll know what they will and they will not tolerate because of what they've gone through. And Jay-Z goes on to say that he knows what he did was bogus, but she was wrong for putting him in a position where he had to choose between the love of his life and his pride. It was the test that he ultimately failed, because, for one, he'd never been challenged in that way. I love this part of the song. It was really like a narcissistic rant that he was having with himself in the mirror, because, truth be told, he knew that sounded ridiculous out loud, and he could never say that to her face. Because it sounded like he wasn't taking full accountability. By the end of the song, there's no big reconciliation. There's no dramatic apology. No profession of love by him. Like the ones you see in the movies. It's so real. It's so real. There's no attempt for him to try to get her back, to preserve the nostalgic memories between them. He just takes his ball and he goes home. And now there's just an understanding. Sometimes closure isn't fixing things and living happily ever after together. Instead, sometimes it's recognizing why the relationship failed, and that's a part of the growing pains of being an adult going through heartbreak. Song Cry, it isn't just about heartbreak, it's about emotional suppression, loving someone without showing it, choosing ambition over intimacy, being weak to the flesh by falling for temptation, and realizing that vulnerability mattered, but realizing it way too late. Jay-Z doesn't cry in this song. The music does. And it's really something to be said that's a much deeper message about this false stereotype that men don't cry. For one, I strongly believe that the artist definitely cried. I mean, just the fact that he has to tell us over and over again, but I didn't cry though, but I didn't cry though, but I didn't cry though, but I didn't cry, but a tear didn't fall, but a tear didn't fall. It's obvious that he did. It's just that the masculinity in him won't let him admit that even though this shattered my heart and I lost the love of my life, that I didn't experience these natural human emotions because men don't cry. And I feel like that's such a dangerous thing because a lot of times in society, we tell ourselves and each other that men aren't supposed to cry. But what happens when a man doesn't cry? He suppresses those emotions and they come out in other ways. They come out in rage. They come out in anger. They come out in self-abuse. They may want to harm themselves. They may want to harm someone else because those emotions still have to go somewhere. So it's best to learn to release them in a safe and healthy way so that you're not putting your hand through a wall or your hand through someone else, or taking your own life, or taking someone else's, or just causing a lot of toxicity because you don't know how to express yourself and be vulnerable with the people around you because you don't feel safe. But I blame society, honestly. Thank you all for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and check out this next one.